Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join His mission.
I'll have to be honest here. I understand you're talking in the Filipino context.
Yeah.
It is very communal. It is, you could call, it's just such a communal outlook. When I consider many Western nations, America, I'll name specifically because I hold an American passport, though my mind is not very American many times. There's so many facets that you touch upon that I am quite jealous for my country. This aspect of discipleship is very much lacking. It's just includes going through a workbook together on a Thursday night. Once that's completed after 9 weeks, you have done your disciple. That is not discipleship.
That's right.
That is not the discipleship Jesus taught anyway.
That's right. Well, Jesus forgot to bring a discipleship manual when he came down from heaven.
Yeah. So that relational aspect that you're talking about, I am quite jealous for my countrymen. My wife grew up in Christ the Living Stone Fellowship, a very highly discipleship-focused Filipino community led by Kuya Dan Balayas, and then using the curriculums of other Filipino leaders. I'm so proud of that aspect because I see instantly. I used to, when I was courting, following, chasing, those many words to describe my wife, we would walk into the church and she'd say, that person over there, that's my disciple. There's my disciple-er. She knew exactly where she fell in the hierarchy. I think that scares most Westerners. Yeah. When in fact there's this safety and community and growth and potential for expansion that is so remarkable.
Oh, yeah.
Do I sound like an American to you or what?
I got from one American counselor, I'm trying to recall his name, but what he said was, life is relationships. The rest are just details. Wow. When I pick up somewhere in my studies, I think during my PhD studies, when I picked up in the book that I was reading, I said, this is the essence of what life is all about. Life is relationships. The rest are just details. And so it's not just you, but you grew up with a mother to feed you, and you have your father to provide the money to see to it that your home can be a comfortable home to raise you up and for you to play with your neighbors. So he has to have the resources to and of course, the Africans have this statement, it takes a village to raise a child. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
But when you say that, in the highly individualized place that most Western countries are, they cannot fathom what you're trying to say. Yeah. I think what you're getting at is this strong relational gospel that must be relational for it to penetrate. And when you touched upon multiplication. Multiplication is not going to happen without relationship. Exactly. I love what David Platt says. He just wrote the book, Something Needs to Change, author of Radical. He always says, don't try to manifest a heart or mind for missions that's devoid of relational intimacy.
Wow.
I think that's so true. You can't build something or work something up for passion for missions that's devoid of some sort of relational facet with God, with humankind. That's something that again, I desire to see in the Western church, and I see it emulated in the Filipino specific and most Asian nations. That is something to be copied and emulated, really. The Chinese might say, no copyright, you copy, right?
Yeah. It's a model of all the greatest teachers, including Jesus.
Yeah.
How did he saw to it that he was preparing a group of people that are going to succeed him because he's going to go back to heaven. And so who are going to multiply him, the Christ-likeness or Jesus-likeness to the rest of the world to follow him. And what he did was, in Mark chapter 3, verse 13, he says, he goes up to the mountain and then called 12 to be with him. So he had to pray for a night to select out of his friends and contacts who are the 12. And I'm sure he has struggled mainly because he knew there was a Judas that will be included. But these 12 will be the ones who are going to be the people who will succeed him. So he
Yes.
will has to multiply himself in these 12. And then I can then go on how this 12 is so significant. Because without these 12, there would have been no Jesus followers
Yes.
after that.
Yes. I think that kind of brings us to that multiplication factor that you said you want to come back to.
Oh, okay.
I mean, when you're
let's do
talking,
that now.
when you talk about that, it's maybe become a phrase that's become popularized. CPM, church planning movement, DMM, disciple making movement. You call it something a little bit different, which I like, the multiplication factor.
Disciple multiplication movements. We have to have a consciousness that movements depend on multiplication. Or in the Navigator, reproduction, that's their language, spiritual reproduction.
It often describes some sort of,
Johnson Trotman used that term.
I see, well, it often describes some sort of biological thing. One cell
becomes two,
becomes
two
two.
becomes four, four becomes eight,
Yep.
etc. And that's what Jesus did. And well, you may be surprised, but I would include this in my training to convince people that Jesus, the perfect God, now in the guise of a perfect man, trying to implement God's perfect plan to evangelize and bring redemption, to restore the whole of humanity and whole of creation to himself, to reconcile the world to himself. Jesus must have done the best strategy. And if we can copy the model of Jesus, we are going to easily finish the Great Commission.
So do you
The
really?
only problem is that
Oh.
we have complicated it.
Yeah.
A very simple, and I'll show that as we go along, that it can be done. But let me show the multiplication part.
Yes.
The 12 were sent out 2 by 2. You know what to do? To do the ministry there, to introduce people to Jesus, to places where Jesus had not been yet.
Okay.
So it was pioneering, frontier missions.
Yes.
And they came back. And then the second time now, Jesus sent out his disciples. He did not send the original 12. In Luke chapter 10, after Luke chapter 9, where he sent the first batch, Luke chapter 10 says, he sent 72 others, meaning not the original 12, but the disciples of the disciples.
Wow,
How do I
okay.
say that? Well, because 12 went out 2 by 2, that's 6 pairs
Okay.
went out.
Okay.
If 6 pairs went out and discipled 12 each, you know how many that is? Exactly 72.
Okay.
Now, if these 72 were sent out 2 by 2,
Yes.
that's 36 pairs went out. If they discipled 12 each, 36 times 12 is 432. You add it to the 72, that's exactly 504. Now, I'm using my Chinese mathematical
I was
skills.
going to say I was
Because somebody
homeschooled, so
asked
I'm
me,
tracking with you here.
How small is small when you talk about small groups? And then I went back to the Bible and used my New Testament scholarship to just quickly use my math to calculate this. And so 504
Okay.
is exactly found in the Bible also. 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 6, Paul says, after the resurrection, Jesus at one time appeared to more than 500 brethren.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
so these
now
are
I'm beginning.
Galileans because they went to the remote villages of Galilee to practice or to do field work or what we call short-term missions. And I'll say later how these 72 would be able to come back and tell Jesus, mission accomplished.
Wow.
None of them was a casualty, in spite of Jesus telling them in verse 3 of Luke 10, I send you like lambs among wolves.
Wow.
Yet they came back and said, no, as lambs, we were able to cast out demons, and the demons just followed us. Okay? But more important, they did not mention 2 other things that happened. The second thing that happened is even demonic men, or we call wolves, became lambs. The transforming power of Jesus and the gospel
Yes.
will change any wolf, including a corrupt government official like Zacchaeus, to transform Jericho. But we'll go back to that story. But more important now is the third one now, that using the simple strategy is that they were able to establish 12 disciples in every village who will lead in the transformation of making this wolf den to become a sheepfold.
Wow. Yeah.
That is the community transformational
Yes.
impact.
Yeah.
If you do it the Jesus way, to me, Jesus is the best community development worker ever. And he has the best strategy to multiply his church, to convert villages instead of just winning one soul at a time.
Yeah.
Missions Pulse. Know God's heart, join his mission. This podcast is powered by Within Reach Global. Subscribe, watch, and listen on YouTube today. Visit missionspulse.com.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed that video, leave a comment below. Tell me what you thought. Also, you might want to check out this video here. And honestly, that one's not bad either. Make sure you subscribe to Missions Pulse by clicking the subscribe button right here, and also click that little bell button so you get notified every single time we post a new video.